Hey guys, so all I'm doing is setting up for this for our live streams today. And the thing is, I use this setup for podcasts, I use it for recording other videos and so forth, which means I'm constantly changing the lights, I'm changing the setup, I'm changing the angles. And every once in a while, I'm like, okay, how did I have that set up? I totally forget. So I think what I need to do, the good thing though, is that I keep a checklist. I keep a checklist that I can then pull up to remind myself what the settings are for each one of these videos and so forth. So live stream master checklist is what I'm pulling up. All right, key light, I actually have it at 30. I think I've always liked it at 30, so I'm actually going to change that. Fill light 70, watt 50. Okay, the camera should be at ISO 100. It's at 200 right now, so I'm going to change the ISO. So let's take a look at that. Gosh, that's a lot darker though, right? A lot darker. All right, well then let's see here. The custom color balance should be 1. Is this for the live stream? It is. Let's see. Backlight, all right. 30%, 40 watt, ISO, and then F2. I'm pretty sure I'm at F2. But gosh, this is just looking really dark. Darker than I think it normally does. Maybe I've had the ISO up at 200 or so. I wonder if let's see if I can do it without moving here. No, I can't see the back. Let's do this. Let's do the ISO at 160. This ISO is 160. Still kind of bright. And that is still at 30%. I'm looking at my key light. My fill light is good. I have that on. All right, we're going to try ISO 125 or something. All right, ISO 125. I wonder if I can change the color balance. Let's change the color balance to 1. Okay, I changed the ISO to 125 and the custom color balance to number 1. That looks a little bit more like what we're used to, right? Yeah, that looks a little more like what we're used to. So I'm going to change some things here on my camera setup template. I'm going to change that to ISO 125. My frames per second is 1/50, so 50. F-stop is at 2. Now if I were to change f-stop, see that gets darker and that gets lighter. I kind of felt like 2 was good. And then the custom color balance is at number 1, and I think that's at 51. 5100 Kelvin. Now 5100 Kelvin, but this key light here is at 5600 Kelvin, which is more kind of like sunlight. So gee, what gives? Well, it just makes it a little warmer and so forth. Now eventually what I'll do is I'll turn on my blue light there, and that'll kind of bring it together. So I think that's a little bit more in keeping with what I'm used to. Again, when I change things up for all my various uses, sometimes I get a little lost on what's happening. So by the way, one thing I want to do is I want to get another light a green light that I can then put on the plant over here because it's a little dark on that side. I can't bring myself to buy that light just yet. You know how it is. It's like you can only buy so many things at once. So I kind of have to hold off. Yeah, I might change. Gosh, am I looking really red? Am I looking really red? Maybe I need to change the color balance again. Well, I'll worry about that later. So for us, though, hold on. Let's get ready there. Let's go ahead and get started. Where am I? I'm right there. All right. No, we'll come back over here. I didn't have my buttons set up properly. Welcome on this. What do we have? Wednesday morning. Holy cow! Trying to keep track of where we are. Sometimes it gets a little tricky, right? Hey, so what I want to talk about today is not that. There we go. I see. I actually moved that button. That's why I got mixed up. I didn't mean to move that. What we're going to talk about today is how to crush an interview. All right. So before we talked a little bit about resumes and so forth, and there are some additional resources on Nutshell Brainery about resumes as well as interviews. But we're going to go into depth today on how to really prepare for and do well in an interview. Interviews are where you get the job, okay? So a resume, the purpose of a resume is to get the interview. The purpose of the interview is to get the job. So what do we need to do to make sure that we are set up for success there? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to go ahead and get my highlighter here so we're good to go. Now, here's something I want you to bear in mind when it comes to an interview. And this is important to remember. Key thing to remember, as interviews last only a few minutes to a couple hours, employers will attempt to extrapolate as much insight as they can from just a very few observations, okay? So what do I mean by that? They will pull far more meaning from everything you say, do, and suggest and provide than is actually there. All right, so let me explain a little bit what I'm talking about. An interview is an exercise in first impressions. The hiring manager and the committee and whomever is interviewing you, they only have a few minutes with you, like I say, maybe an hour, right? But they are working in zero information. All they know about you is what you have on your resume, and yet they want to know everything about you. And there's no way they're going to ever know everything about you. And so they tend to read into your dress, your mannerisms, your facial expressions, your tonality, what you say, how you say it, what you don't say, things like that. And they are going to extract far more meaning from all these things than is actually there, right? And so it's really high pressure. It's high stakes for everyone, including the interviewer. The interviewer doesn't like doing interviews. Trust me on this. Companies don't like hiring. It's expensive. It's stressful. It's full of ambiguity and unknowns. It's expensive. And you're never guaranteed of a good hire. And so they're kind of freaking out. It's high stakes for them. It's also high stakes for you because you want the job. And so just bear in mind that as we go through and talk about the things that I recommend you do in preparation for and during the interview, it might seem small, and in the grand scheme of things, it is small, but not in an interview. because they're reading into it a lot. Okay? All right. So with that, let's go forward. First of all, before the interview, oh my gosh, research the bejesus out of the company. You really want to know everything you can about the company. Let's talk about what to research. First of all, really memorize their mission, vision, objectives, their strategy, and so forth. Here's the thing. Nobody in the world cares about the company's mission and vision and all that stuff except the people in the company. And to them, it is all important. It is their raison d'etre, their reason for being. And so while to everyone else, it's like, yeah, words, blah, 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 whatever. To them, this is like their domain of self-worth. This is what they really care about. So you really want to make sure that you understand their mission, their vision, their objectives, their strategy, how they are competitive. And then you want to use those words in the interview. We'll get to that. You also want to understand who their competitors are. These folks keep them awake at night. They think about their competitors all the time. They talk about their competitors all the time. There's this insane rivalry between the competitors. So when I worked at FedEx, we talked about UPS all the time. When I worked at Intel, we talked about AMD all the time. When I worked at eBay, we talked about Amazon all the time. You want to understand who their competitors are and what their competitive position is. Where are they better? Where are they worse? Where is the company that you're interviewing for? Where are they vulnerable? Where are their strengths? Okay? And then you need to understand the industry health. How is the industry as a whole, right? So if you're applying for, let's say a job in power, right, in coal or fossil fuels, you'll want to understand that the industry is kind of going through a pivotal moment right now, because there's a lot of transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. You'll want to understand the nature of that environment and how the company you're interviewing with sits in that environment and what their strategy is to mitigate for it. On the other hand, you might be applying for a job at a company that is in a growth industry that's really growing. Well, what's causing it to grow? Will those environmental factors continue to be in place for the next 5 to 10 years? These are things you want to understand because you want to be able to speak intelligently about not only the company and the competitors, but the industry as a whole during the interview. Okay? Then you want to research the position itself that you are applying for. Okay? I'm going to point out, and gosh, I'm now realizing that because these are hot links, they're not super visible. So let me show you some of my favorites. Let's go to O-Net Online. Okay, O-Net Online, and I'm actually going to pull this one up. Let's pull up a new window. All right, there's my new window, and we're going to go to O-Net. O-Net Online. This is a great way to research a position. So, for example, if I come over here to I want to be, and let's say that we are applying to be an accountant. All right, there's accountant. I go ahead and search for accountant, and it gives me all the positions. Well, what kind of position am I looking for particularly? Well, let's just say accountant and auditors. We'll just do the first one. Now, what ONET Online will show us is, well, what is the basic knowledge you need to be successful in this job? What are the skills you need? Okay. And then what abilities do you need? Now, check this out. It also shows what technology you need to understand. So, for example, okay, Intuit QuickBooks. Well, this tells you that if you apply to be an accountant, it's probably a good idea for you to have skills in Intuit QuickBooks. Well, what if you have no skills? Well, you have YouTube, right? Take some time before the interview and learn it and so forth so that you can say, yes, I have some, passive knowledge and some experience kind of muddling my way through it. Same things with Oracle and Tropics and so forth, all right? But since there's that little flame on Intuit QuickBooks, that means that's the hot technology right now. You want to make sure that you can understand it. And then it shows you where the starting salary is for this position, as well as the top salary and the median salary. That is going to be handy later on. So this is a really good way to kind of get a snapshot for what the company is expecting in their candidates, okay? Now, I'd like to show you another one, right? If we come here, you also see that there's Glassdoor. Glassdoor is really interesting. Glassdoor is basically Yelp or Rate My Professors for employers and employees. Okay, so you go into class, let's just go in with continuous lawn, whatever. Okay, all right, I'm in. So, what you can do is you can research companies, find out about the company and so forth, and we can go ahead and do a search. Oh, where do we do search? Oh, goodness gracious. Company. Oh, here we go. Here's our search. Okay. So I'm going to do what's a local company here. Let's do Rio Tinto, just for the fun of it. Rio Tinto. Okay. Oh, and we'll spell it correctly. Rio Tinto. And we can learn about the company, but then what's more interesting is that we can read reviews from other people who have worked there or who have interviewed there. And we can read reviews, but then check this out. We can also check out the average salaries at Rio Tinto. Okay, this is all reported by employees. And so you can actually get some pretty good insights into the company when it comes to whatever job you're applying for. So if we're going for, say, business analyst, we can go ahead and click on business analyst. And eventually, once my internet catches up, because we're doing live stream at the same time, it's a little slow right now, it's going to show us some salaries for business analyst. Eventually. So how you doing? Talk amongst yourselves, things like that. Okay. We're not going to wait for it, but you get the idea. So it is a really great way of checking out, what is expected of a position and what that particular company expects from their employees and what they tend to pay. Now, there are some other websites you'll want to check out as well. Payscale.com, BLS, Occupational and Employment Statistics. All of these will give some pay and education information on the positions, but these two, ONET Online and Glassdoor.com, they are my favorites, okay? Another way you can get information about an employer is talk to your network, all right? Now, let's talk for a moment about a network. And by the way, James says really great advice. Many times I've studied just enough about something that I was not familiar with it. When possible, I would even research my employer so I could unwittingly mention, so, oh my gosh. So not only is that an awesome comment, I'm going to give that a double awesome comment. And it's also a great real world example. You want to learn all this stuff because when you are in the interview, you want to just kind of pass off information. You want to just kind of say things as though, oh, it's common knowledge that blah, blah, blah. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you understand this? You know this? This is fantastic, right? Let's talk for a moment about networks. Oh, I don't know how to stress this enough. I've really struggled with trying to convey this to my clients, my students, folks that I help and so forth. Your network is everything. Build your professional network. Now, personally, I really enjoy LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great and very powerful tool for keeping up on the network and finding out who works where and who might know whom in a company. But regardless of how you do it, I cannot overstress the importance of your network. When it comes to all your career positions, they will come about because of your network. The larger your network, the more opportunities will come your way. Trust me on this. Even you right now, if you're working a relatively entry-level job, 4 out of 5 of you got that entry-level job because you knew somebody, a friend, a family member, a former coworker, something like that, a network. Well, if this is the case for your entry-level jobs, just imagine how important it is for your career positions. So take the time to really build your network, okay? And then do a drive-by. Why? You want to see how they're dressed. You want to see when people show up to work. You want to kind of get a feel for what the environment is and so forth. Now, when it comes to dress, and we'll talk more about this in a moment, don't underestimate the importance of dress. You know from these lectures in internal business communication, this is a communication channel, and you want to make sure you use that channel properly. Okay, let's continue on. Now, let's talk about the interview itself, all right? I want to invite you to do a few things. First of all, I want you to recalibrate your headset. Headset? No, your headspace. Recalibrate your headspace. Let me explain what I mean by that. Oftentimes when we go into an interview, we sort of have this hat in hand attitude, like we're some sort of beggar or something, saying, "May I have a job? May I have a job, please? May I have a job?" And we almost feel like we're this lowly person looking for a job, whereas the person we're interviewing for, they're sitting on high on the tower, and they sit above and they look down on us, and they bestow positions upon the candidates, right? No. Get out of that headspace. First of all, the employer is not as freaked out as you are, but they're freaked out, okay? Let me explain what is in the employer's head. Here's what's in their head. First of all, they have a problem. They have a problem, and they cannot solve this problem with their current resources, and this problem is costing them money. So they're kind of freaking out. They are losing money day after day after day. They're losing opportunity day after day after day. They're, all kinds of things. They have a problem. They can't solve it with their current resources, and it's costing them money, so they need to hire someone. They're also freaking out because hiring, as I mentioned, is extremely stressful. It is extremely time-consuming. nobody ever feels like they have a bead on how to do it. We're all making this crap up. All right. Even people who hire constantly are like really anxious inside because they're just kind of making up the process. Even if it's a documented process, they don't always feel like they have all their ducks in a row. Okay. And furthermore, they're never guaranteed of a good hire. I'm telling you, 1 out of 5 hires ends up being garbage, maybe even 2 out of 5 hires. And it's like, how do they figure it out? It's really tough. Okay. So they are looking for somebody to solve their problem. And when they find somebody who they like, they start to freak out as much as when you find a company or a position you really like. They're like, oh my gosh, when can we get this person? Are they interviewing with anyone else? How soon can we give an offer? How expensive are they? Can we get them right away? I mean, they're nervous, right? And you have power. You are not a beggar. You are not looking for charity. You have power. You have the skills, competence, and experience and work ethic they need to solve their problems, and they want you. Okay? So that's what I mean by recalibrate your mindset, your headspace, right? You're not going in as a beggar. All right. Dress. Dress matters. Not because I'm some conservative. No, I don't care what I wear. I mean, I wear Crocs with socks, people. Okay. So I am not haute fashion, right? Haute couture, something like that. But when it comes to an interview, remember, they're reading in a ton in your interview. So let me tell you a story about dress. I was consulting with a company. I was with their HR department, and we were hiring a finance guy, a finance manager. Now, the decision for who to hire is with the director of finance, all right? But now here's the thing. Everybody in the company, it's a small company, would interview this person, including the CEO. Now, the director of finance, actually is the VP of finance. He gets to make the decision. In this case, it was a he. He gets to make the decision, the VP of finance. However, everybody will chime in and kind of say, well, this is what I thought and so forth, right? Yes, Tristan, fashion police. Ain't that the truth? Yes. And so we're getting some points there. So here's what happens. Everybody's walking into the building, and down in the main lobby of this building and so forth, one of the candidates is sitting there, and this candidate is dressed sharp. I mean, he looks good. It is a nice suit. His hair is well coiffed. This guy has it going on. Well, we all interview him, and he's good. We have other candidates who are good as well, so he's fine. Well, we all get into the conference room to kind of give our feedback and our opinions and insights to the VP of Finance, who has to make the hiring decision. Well, the CEO walks into the building, into the room, and says, well, I'll tell you what, I saw that guy. I saw him in the lobby, and I thought, oh my gosh, he looks so good. He's well dressed. This guy really has it going on. I hope he's interviewing with us. So we all gave our opinions and we all gave our insights and so forth. But you need to understand, when the CEO of the company says, I hope he's interviewing with us, this guy has it going on, that definitely influences the decision. And yes, this guy got the job. Now, he was a good hire, but I kind of feel like what he wore was 50% of the decision. Incredible, incredible. All right? So do not underestimate that. Body language. Body language matters. Okay, we've talked about body language in this lecture series, especially as we referenced Amy Cuddy and the research that she's done on power poses and so forth. Power poses, sit up straight. I mean, not so ramrod straight that you look, ramrod, right? But sit up straight. Even lean forward just a little bit. If you are leaning forward in your seat and just kind of leaning into the conversation, as it's called, that really sends a strong message. It sends a strong message of confidence, of assertive, of engaged in the conversation. And the hiring manager really wants to know that you're engaged in the conversation. Of course, we want eye contact and so forth, and we don't want fidgeting. So just be aware of your body language. It does matter. Remember, they're reading tea leaves. They're reading all kinds of stuff into the tiniest little things because they've only got you for 45 minutes in this interview. Okay? Yes, Tristan, good listening body language. Focused in, leaning forward. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And then finally, really research and understand and be prepared to answer behavioral interview questions. Now, behavioral interview questions are they're questions designed to figure out what you have actually done, right? They want to hear that you've accomplished something. How did you do it? All right, so let me give you an example. Behavioral interview questions start with phrases such as, tell me about a time when. So, for example, this job requires you to interact with our customers quite often, and these customers are not always happy when they call. Tell me about a time when you received a call from an angry customer and you were not able to resolve their issue. What did you do? Behavioral interview questions always kind of set up, here's the situation. Tell me about a time, give me an exact time, a real situation. And they tend to set you up for, tell me about a time that you failed. Okay? They don't want to hear about a time that you were amazing and stellar and fantastic and so on and so forth. Business is made up of wicked problems, difficult problems, ambiguous problems, problems that don't have a clear solution. They don't want to hear about your clear solutions. They want to hear about times when things got messy. Now, they're doing a few things here. They, first of all, of course, want to see that you've done this before and that you know what you're doing and that you have some experience. But what they also want to see is your thinking. They want to see, how do you respond under pressure? What do you learn from it? How did you apply what you learned into another situation? So, for instance, one time, if I were asked a behavioral question about, tell us a time that you were required to manage a global team and things didn't work out. Well, I could give a great example of a time where I was called upon to manage a global team and it was awful. I crashed and burned. However, what I would then follow up with was, but then I learned these things. I learned this, this, and this. And in fact, 2 years later, I was asked to once again manage this team. And this time I knew what to do. I did this, I did this, I did this. And the second time around, it was much more effective. And as a matter of fact, one of those people that I managed is one of my references. Okay, true story. All right. They love to see that because it's not that they don't, there's nothing wrong with you saying I struggled. What they really want to see is I learned from it and applied it later on. So what I recommend you do is you research top 10 behavioral interview questions. Trust me, they're using the same source you are. It's not like they're reinventing the behavioral interview question, but say top 10 behavioral interview questions, read the questions, and have in mind responses that you would offer up there. By the way, Tristan says, side note, I love your communication fundamentals series. Yes, and that's really what we're talking about here, right? Is the fundamentals of our communication, how we use these tools to influence our audience. And in this case, our audience is a hiring manager. Okay, 2. All right, this, please, believe me. Take notes. Take notes during the interview. When it comes to notes and asking questions, we'll come back to asking questions. If I am interviewing somebody and they are not taking notes and they are not asking questions, they're an automatic rejection. As a matter of fact, I'll stop the interview halfway through. I'll pretend like we're done, but I still have 7 questions to ask. I'll skip those questions and say, well, I appreciate your time. I think we're all set here. Thank you very much. If you are not taking notes and not asking questions, you are telling the person you do not care about the job. You don't care about the job. You just want the job. You just want the money. Whatever, right? It shows you're not engaged. And if you're not engaged, you don't care. And if you don't care, why am I talking to you? So you really want to show them that you are listening to what they're saying, and taking notes is a great way to listen to what they're saying, and that you're asking questions, and you want to make sure that you're asking the right kind of questions. Let me tell you the right kind and the wrong kind. Let me first tell you the wrong kind of question. The wrong kind of question is tactical questions that matter only to you versus strategic questions that matter to them. A tactical question that matters only to you is, how much does this job pay? What's your time off policy? How many days vacation do I get? Stuff like that. These are things that have no bearing to whether or not you're a valuable contributor for the company. They don't care about these things, and yet it shows that you are fixated on the teeny tiny aspects of working here that are only, relevant to you. Versus the right kind of questions are questions that they really care about. And because you research their vision and their mission and their objectives and their competitors, you really know what they care about. So for example, at Salt Lake Community College, our enrollment is down. Our enrollment is down more than any other institution of higher learning in the state of Utah. This bothers me to an apocalyptic degree. And so I'm actually making some changes and working on what I'm going to do to help fix that. But trust me, it bothers the administration a lot as well. So if I'm interviewing for a position at Salt Lake Community College, I'd ask, so my understanding is that enrollment is down across the state, but it's down even more for SLIC. And yet that seems to me odd because SLIC is the most affordable option for students. What has your research found in terms of student enrollment, and what are you doing to help reverse that? And they are going to just start eating out of your hand. They're going to go, oh my gosh, oh, you're so right. Oh, this keeps us up at night, and it does. All right, just so you know, it does. And they say, we've tried this, we're looking at this, we're putting in place this program, we're interviewing these folks, and so forth. And so now what you've done is it's no longer an interview. Now it's 2 professionals talking shop. The sooner you can transition this meeting between you and the hiring manager from an interview to two equal professionals talking shop, the better it is for you. And so that's what the right kind of questions are going to be. All right. Now, be prepared to answer the tricky questions. All right. Now, in another video I have on Nutshell Brainery, we talk a little bit about salary. Actually, we talk in depth about salary. Don't answer questions around salary. Here's the thing. You've researched what the pay is for this particular position. You've researched the average pay rates on onet.net, and you've onet online, onet.net, whatever, and you've also researched it on Glassdoor. So when they say, you know, what are your salary expectations, say, you know, the going rate for this position is this, I expect something in that range. Now, just so you know, and there's more information about this in the videos on Nutshell Brainery on changing your career. The company does something called a market comp, a market comparison. What a market comp does is it says, okay, if we are hiring a business analyst, this is the going rate for a business analyst at all these companies in our area, okay? And so therefore, if we want to hire or buy a business analyst in this area, we can expect to pay about this much because that's the going rate. It's supply and demand, it's basic economics. And so when they are asking, what are your salary expectations? They're hoping you haven't done a market comp because they want to get you for less than the market comp. And so what you basically want to do is telegraph to them that you've done the market comp. Say, well, you know, I've researched the going rate for this position in the area, and it's going to be somewhere around, you know, 44,000 and 54,000 in that range. And so I expect that when we get to the time to negotiate salary, it's going to be somewhere in there. That tells them they're not going to be able to trick you into a lower rate. Okay? So a little bit about that. What if you were fired? What if you were fired from a previous position? Okay. First of all, that's not a career ender. It's not. The majority, I don't know if I can say majority. I can't say majority. I don't have statistics to support this. It has been my experience that many people I know who are in really successful professional careers have at some time during their careers been fired, myself included. I have been fired. So what do you do? How do you answer, hey, so why did you leave your previous position? Two things. First, be honest. Second, don't be the victim. And the third of the three things, don't attack your previous employer. Okay? Just be honest with it, but say it was a mutual, you know, I did this, it didn't meet their expectations, we had a disagreement on what the expectations should have been, and at the end of the day, I was let go from the position. Now, you know, it's that simple. You're not a victim. Oh, it's so wrong that they let me go. And you're not attacking the previous employer saying, well, they're a bunch of unethical, you know, dorks, right? No, you're just saying, you know, I failed to meet the expectations. We had a disagreement on what I should have done and how it should have been done. There was some precedent on both sides. At the end of the day, we could not agree, and I was invited to leave. right? Now, obviously, it depends on the situation and so on and so forth. But speaking from experience, the job I had just before I was hired on with Intel Corporation, I had been fired from. And the hiring manager at Intel asked me, "Hey, so what's the deal with this company?" And I was fully honest. I did not play the victim. I did not, slander the company. I just said we could not see eye to eye. And at the end of the day, I was invited to leave and I agreed, which is true. Okay. Well, they said, and actually she responded, the hiring manager, with, "Sounds like an engineering company. They think like that." And I'm like, yeah, okay. All right. So those are your tips and tricks for if you've been fired. Gap in employment. What if you have a gap in your employment? You haven't been in the job space for 2 years or something like that, right? Gaps in employment are not a problem if you were doing something important and productive and so forth during that time. Were you taking care of a family member? Were you starting a business? Were you going back to school? Were you helping to do this, that, and the other? Were you doing volunteer work? Unless the answer to gap in employment is, "I spent 2 years in my mother's basement playing video games," then anything you say is, "Well, this is what I was doing during that time." And so just be open and honest about it. Last, criminal record. What if you have a criminal record? All right. Once again, honest. Do not blame the perpetrator, the system, and do not play the victim. The thing about criminal record, though, it's when to be honest. Okay? So let's say that you have a felony on your record. You don't mention this in your resume. You do not mention this in your first interview. You do not mention it in your second interview. The time that you bring it up is when they say, "We are prepared to do a background check." And you simply say, "Excellent. I'm looking forward to that. By the way, you should know that when you do the background check, you are going to find the following incident." And you explain the incident without emotion, not playing the victim, anything like that, and what you have done since then, and just let them know. Now, first, they're going to find it in the background check anyway, so you want to make sure you tell them before. But why are we waiting until the background check to tell them? Well, because here's the thing. A company doesn't do a background check until they've pretty much decided that you're the one. Okay? So while you may not have the job offer yet, they have decided they are going to give you a job offer. And so the background check is kind of like the last perfunctory step in the hiring process. And so this means that when they've made the decision to make the background check, to do the background check, they are already emotionally invested in you. They already have a stake in this hire. They already have begun to develop a relationship with you, which means they are going to be more open-minded and understanding when you bring up a past criminal record. Whereas if you brought it up on the first day, it's like, you're gone, right? It's like the Great British Baking Show, right? The British Bake Off. When they let people go the first week or the second week, they're like, well, we don't care. We don't have an emotional connection with you. We don't have a relationship. But when they're letting people go on the 5th, 6th, 7th week and so forth, you can see they really get verklempt because you're my friend. I know you now. So you want this to be the case when they do the background check. Okay? All right. After your interview, yes, thank you notes matter. Why do they matter? Well, once again, they read a lot into the teeniest tiny things. Is it really important to do a thank you note? No. Well, yes, because, okay, they all get together in the room to decide who to hire, right? And let's say that it's between you and someone else. They are going to look for the teeniest, tiniest things to try to figure out who edges out the other person. And one thing they're going to ask is, well, did they send a thank you note? Now, if you did send a thank you note, great, wonderful, fantastic. But if you didn't send a thank you note, the next question that comes up in that hiring conference room is, well, do we know they really want the job? You never want them to ask when they're making a hiring decision, do we know they really want the job? Okay? So the thank you note erases that concern. Rejection follow-up. Let's say you don't get the job. Follow up with them. Thank you for the opportunity to interview with them. And if you really have an interest in working for this company, ask the hiring manager if you can have 30 minutes of their time to get feedback on the interview. Okay? This does a lot of things. First of all, it is like way totally professional and mature to say, hey, I appreciate it. I'm sure you got a great candidate and I'm glad for you. No hard feelings. That's emotionally mature, shows emotional whatever, and really professional. And they love seeing that. Second is, by asking for feedback on the interview, it shows that you're coachable and open to feedback, which are totally, totally important soft skills in the workforce. Third, it shows that you have a real interest in the company and that you want to continue to build a relationship into the company. It just goes on and on, right? Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. I interviewed with a company. Well, I never worked for this company. I actually never did get hired. This was years and years and years ago. But I interviewed once and I followed up and asked for feedback and so forth. After that, I got interviewed 3 more times for 3 different positions because this hiring manager that I reached out to and asked for feedback, she pushed me hard throughout the company. She was my champion. Now, like I say, I never got hired, but trust me, I would not have gotten all those interviews and all those opportunities had I not gone and asked for feedback. Okay? And there you go, my friends. I really hope this was helpful to you. I have hired hundreds of people. I've consulted in many, many hires. I have gone through this process. I have helped HR departments write hiring process manuals. And my PhD is in organizational psychology, which means I know how people think when it comes to an organization. So I really hope that you got something valuable out of this because trust me, this is how it goes down. All right. Tristan, you're welcome. Michael, thank you all very much for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to hang out. But one thing, connect with me in LinkedIn. All right. I'm going to go ahead and write this. Connect with me in LinkedIn. Okay. Let's start building that professional network. You'll never know. You never know when a network can come in handy. So it's good to start now. All right. Thank you all very much. And we'll talk to you again next week. And Tristan, yes, I'll go ahead and stick around for the question in case everybody else needs it as well. Yes, Tristan, go right ahead. In the meantime, folks, you can stick around, or we'll see you next week. And we'll hang out a moment and see where Tristan is. Yes, connect with LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, what I ought to do is I ought to pull up my LinkedIn address so that I can direct you guys to it. So let's do that while we're waiting. LinkedIn. So Tristan asks, regarding market comp, can I use that to ask my current employer for a raise if I'm being paid under what other companies are paying? Yes. Okay, so Tristan, this is how you do this, all right? When you were hired at a certain rate to deliver. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna pull over a whiteboard. Up. Okay. Now, it would be better if I were using my lav mic now, but this will work. So, Tristan, when you were hired at a certain dollar amount for a certain, contribution. The skills you were providing, the services, your roles and responsibilities, okay? And so the idea was, all right, considering the contributions you're making to the company and your roles and responsibilities, here's the salary we are going to pay you at. Now, what happens is as your experience goes up and you learn more and you become more and more valuable, it's natural for your contributions to start to go up. That line went up, okay? So your contributions are going up because of your skill, your experience, your additional roles and responsibilities and things like that. But your salary tends to stay fairly flat. It's just kind of the nature of things. Maybe it goes up 3% every once in a while. Big whoop-de-doo, right? But if you look at the market comp and you notice that there's a significant gap between that, then what you want to do is you want to go to the employer and say, I'd like to make a case for a raise. Let me make this case. And the case you want to say is, first of all, you want to figure out all the ways that your contributions, that's just not working, that your contributions have gone up. Say over the last year and a half or 2 years and so forth, I've done this. I've taken on this additional role. I've taken on this additional responsibility. I was asked to step in when there was a gap here. I have done this, and this. And so I have added, I have brought additional value to the company. And then you pull out the market comp. And you cite actual data from the websites that I showed you, right? The market comp, so you can say, now, given what I'm doing and given the market, I feel like I, should be eligible for a raise. I love working here. I love the people I work with. This is a great company. I feel very much aligned on mission and values. And so I feel like I have a good home here. That said, I feel like I have the skills, experience, and competencies that would make me more valuable somewhere else. Now, be careful on playing that card because they might say, well, then go somewhere else, right? You'll want to kind of gauge that. But by saying, hey, my contributions have gone up, okay, but my market comp has my pay has remained steady when market comp should give me more, then you can make a good case. So yes, you can absolutely do that. Okay? I hope that was helpful. In the meantime, I'm going to come over here and pull up the LinkedIn. There we go. There, that is the link for my LinkedIn account. So guys, hook up with me. All right? Okay, thank you very much. I will hang out if there's another question and so forth, but otherwise, you guys have a great rest of the week. And you bet, Tristan, anytime. I'm here as a resource. All right? We'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.